Right now.
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 Right
Right now.
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 Because it's time to write now.
Right 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 now.
Right.
Mystery, fantasy, sci-fi. What are we going to be reading today? With over 300 live stories critiqued and many, many more to come, you found yourself at the Story and Critique Show, where I read writers' stories in the community and I do a live critique, similar to what you expect for an alpha or beta reading. So make sure to come join along, come chill in the comments, whether you're watching live or on the replay, as we are going to help some writers in the community with improving their story. And if you're new here, welcome. My name's Kauffman. I'm on a mission to help writers with the entire process, because let's face it, writing a book takes time, it takes energy, but with a community, it is made that much easier. So we're going to be hopping right into it. But first off, and most importantly, if you are trying to submit your story, it's super easy. All you have to do is go down in the YouTube description down below, click on that link to submit a story to the Story and Critique Show. We're pretty caught up with stories. There was a couple that I had to turn down actually for technical reasons. So we're actually at a pretty good place for stories. So whether you're watching live or on the replay, submit now. I want to help you improve that next excerpt of your story. And I will drop the link in the chat for those of you not on YouTube, not on the YouTube. All right, perfect. And of course, if you ever want to check out any of our previous Story and Critique Show episodes, we have the Story and Critique Show archive also linked down in the YouTube description down below. Hey, what's up, Eli? Welcome, 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 my friend. Hope everything is treating you well. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I always love having you here in the chat, in the community with us. All right, so let's see what we're going to be getting up to today. The first story we have on deck looks like we got a fantasy romance by our very own Engi. So we're going to be doing Solstice Saga, which is a fantasy romance by Engi. All right. So we're going to be getting right into it, and we're going to see just how we can help. All right, let me cue it up here. And while I'm doing that, let's break down how do we do these critiques. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, I like to break down the critiques into a couple of different segments. I like to break it down into character development, world building, dialogue, plot, or style. When I'm looking through the story, I'm asking myself, how can I provide feedback that fits into one of these following categories? That way, when the author goes back to their work and they're trying to work on it, it makes it easier for them to be able to apply the feedback to a specific segment of their writing style. So this is what I found has worked really, really well. And of course, most importantly, if you're listening along and there's something that really stands out to you, come join the conversation. I want to hear from you. Whether there's something that you really like, a line that you just absolutely love, or if there's something that just doesn't make sense. Maybe a character is funky, maybe a piece of dialogue doesn't work, or maybe just something about the story feels off, drop a comment. Because if we are submitting our stories for the critique show, then we are assuming that all feedback is good feedback. Because we want to help each other get that story to the published draft. And the only way to get it published is with the feedback loop. All right, so I feel confident. Let's hop into it and let's see what we see. So I'm going to queue up our first story over here. All right, and Okay, I feel pretty good. Easy, easy, easy. All right. All right, so I got it. It looks like we're all set up over here. Let's do it. Waking up with a little bit of caffeine for the day. All right, and we are going to see just how we can help out. Actually, I don't know if I like that. Let's fix this 1 second. We're gonna go to the bigger screen here. Yes, much better. Little more screen real estate. All right, and we are going to do that. Perfect. Now we're all set. Excellent. So let's get into it. Let's help out and let's see just what feedback we can provide for Engi. Hey, what's up, Mary? Welcome. Made it, but not sure for how long. Thanks for the heads up, my friend. We'll try to see if I can get your story early on to see if we can help you out at all. Same, Mary, just watching while we're doing chores. Once they're done, I'll be off for errands. Completely understandable, especially with our weekends and those of you who are working during the week. We got to be able to maximize our time on weekends. Totally get that. So let's get into it. We're going to help right away with Engi and see just what we can see. All right, and I got to pull up. Let's pull up the sheet and see just what Engi is looking for. All right, so let's see. We have Solstice Saga, a fantasy romance by author Engi. And it looks like, let's see. All right, so it looks like it is a novella, which is generally under anywhere between generally 20 to 40,000 words, I would say. 20 to 40,000. Or not novella. Novella is a short story. Generally like 40 to 60,000. Short story or short novel. It's a first draft, and let's see, feedback. Just general feedback in light of the previously submitted prologue. Okay. Yep. And I think I remember Engi looking at one of your stories in a previous show with the Dragonborn. So let's look into it and let's see just how the story. That's right. The prologue, we had our Dragonborn character, which was super cool, who was attacked by 2 elven assassin warriors using light magic. It's actually a really cool prologue, which means we're now probably getting into our MC for the story. Carmine, of which I believe the prologue had ended off that the Dragonborn had been sent to assassinate her. Okay, so let's get into it and let's see just what we can see. Chapter 1, Rising Steam. The wine tasted bland. Carmine. I'd say Carmine. So the wine tasted bland. Carmine had been told that human wine was less tasteful than elven or draconian ones, but she could not have imagined it would be this bad. Truth be told, a species with such short lifespans couldn't afford to wait centuries for a single bottle to be done. Still, this almost insulted her. The room they gave her, in stark contrast, looked like something she wouldn't see anywhere outside a castle. Vines grew up the walls. A huge balcony occupied the whole west wall and featured the frankly astonishing view of the new buildings that overtook the landscape. Sitting on the soft chair facing towards the sunrise, Carmine allowed herself to breathe in the silence of the altitude. Her room was a good 30 floors above the ground, and the embassy was built on top of a large cliff that overlooked the capital of Superflua, which she thought was frankly a quite on-the-nose name. Silence was abundant, but she could already see the steam rising off the train station, in which she was welcomed a few days ago. The tiny dots of gas lamps being put out on the street, and some lit up as the early workers used their own lanterns to walk around the city. Another sip of wine. Now that Carmine had adjusted her expectations, it didn't taste as bad. She set her gaze on the horizon, the moon now giving its goodbyes to the sky, the sun rising in her view, majestic and golden. The rays of morning light reflected off her silver hair, pale skin that shimmered, and a dress fancy enough to belong in a royal event, and still, she was using it to sleep. She would hate to be the one to wake her father, but her anticipation wouldn't let her rest. Letters were to come. Her people anticipated a grand marriage to the Duke of Mankind's empire, and she herself could feel her heart strain and speed up when the passing thought came back. Atop the small table was the unfolded letter, the freshly broken wax seal of the Elven commanders, the specific mention of her name as the recipient. Her chest rose just a bit quicker when her gaze found the letter by accident. How would she tell? Could she break the news that the charming and charismatic Elven Duchess had no interest in this alliance? Would her parents, who made long strides to secure a railroad across their kingdom, understand she didn't want marriage? Would her consort, who by human standards grew up his whole life being promised her hand, understand? Her day had barely begun. The sunlight didn't even cover the embassy fully, and yet the weight of today was heavy. The moment her dad woke up, demands would begin. Her hands trailed to the letter, recoiling at the last breath before it. Her eyes, green, lively, had a barely contained dread. Carmine yawned, crimson nails rising to thin lips, while her other hand set the wineglass on the oak table beside her. Behind the elf, from a mirror of black stone, a figure stepped out. Not the worst view I have seen, the silhouette commented, stepping up to the balcony and allowing the thick jewelry to shine against the sun. Always demeaning, Carmine said, voice devoid of tone. It is good to see you kept yourself punctual. The snake took out a pocket watch, checking it. On time, as always. A chuckle came from the elf while she looked at him, slim, defined, the hood of a cobra prevalent against the silhouette that formed out of the reflection, but the scales remained dark with angular golden lines crossing over the chest and along the back. The arms and legs were fluid. The tail swayed and slithered as it walked, letting his tongue flick, while two bright eyes observed the city, hand finding a grip on the railing. I myself would have picked the balcony facing the sunset. Would be slightly closer to your biological clock. The serpentine turned to look at Carmine. My fair Duchess, up so early? What troubles you? Carmine snickered and took the wineglass to her lips again. You know what troubles me all too well, my loyal butler. He rolled his eyes, placing a hand on his chest in mockery. A butler? Oh, you jest. I am overqualified, he continued, giving his voice a comedically exaggerated tone. Carmine laughed more openly. Oh, thank you, Ouroboros. I needed a laugh. And now you insult me by making me your jester, he added, taking the bottle and filling her glass up. I hardly qualify with the looks your family gives me already. I don't even use the bad jokes. Carmine took another sip, running the liquid over her tongue, gaze following Ouroboros while he paced around her, his whole body in constant motion that seemed delayed. His walk was theatrical, how he would spin around himself with no reason and do short hops back and forth while letting the tail swish around him. Finally, the serpentine did a little hop and sat atop the railing, slightly blocking her view while crossing his legs, managing to match his tails curling to the sun as if wrapping around it. This should be a fun day. Is your consort finally here? Did his letters reach you? He asked in a friendly tone. No, dear butler of mine. His letters stopped after he boarded the train, she sipped. But I reckon that his railroad should be leaving him at the station today. Ouroboros took his pocket watch out, checked it, and looked at the train station below them. 2 minutes and a half late. My, oh my, the barbarians! He snapped the lid off of the watch shut. Human efficiency is truly a myth in the end. Carmine pursed her lips after finishing another tasteless sip. Dad always said that convenience is the heart of laziness. Ouroboros rolled his golden eyes, laying down on the wooden railing. Your father says many things, he commented, many of which we can agree to disagree on. Don't be so bold. Your usefulness can only save you from so many insults. Oh, please. Your old man would never fire his beloved, all-seeing assistant. He joked, but Carmine knew that was how he pitched himself, a gross upsell of his abilities. Speaking of being all-seeing, I have news, as always, but you may need a full stomach. Her fingers tensed around the glass, just enough to turn white. Well then, I'll get ready to have breakfast, if this news demands my attention. The elf extended the glass to Ouroboros, who downed it in one gulp and let the glass rest on the table. That tasted expensive, Ouroboros said, sitting back up. Carmine stood up and went back inside to the main room, opening a dark wardrobe and looking inside to a few assorted clothing options. As usual, a lot of them were long dresses of various colors. Her fingers trailed to a sky blue one. Pulling it from the hook it was on, and closing the door and stepping inside the bathroom, where she quickly changed and realigned her hair to fit the silver tiara that seemed to be crafted with branches of long-dead trees. Coming out, she saw the serpentine was still in the balcony, pacing around the railing with practiced ease. His thick claws and flexible feet managed to almost wrap themselves around the handle, like you'd expect from primates in the jungle. His movement was mesmerizing in the same way that all serpentine are, fluid and graceful, but with coiled-up tension to spring and kill. Please don't do that, she said, fixing her tiara. You will scare who's ever looking. All right, and we will end the reading there. End reading. All right, that looked like that was like a good story beat there, or that was a good pause in the story beat. And wow, first off, I absolutely love that. So this is fantasy romance, which means we have a romance subplot forming. I'm assuming between Carmine and another character who's coming up, but I absolutely love that opening. I think one of its strengths is absolutely the characters. You, Engi, you do such a great job of forming that dynamic, that initial bond between Carmine and Ouroboros, which when I first heard Ouroboros, I'm like, do I like that name? And I think the more that I'm reading it, I think the more it's growing on me. And I like it, Carmine and Ouroboros, and I like that dynamic they have. It's kind of like the Batman and his butler, Batman's butler, Alfred. It's kind of it has that like Batman Alfred type dynamic in a sense, where it's kind of they have this like lighthearted back and forth. And at first, when he's introduced, like, oh, this guy, this like some dark snake dude. And then the more they're talking, they have this comedic undertone of a shared history, and you can tell that the more that they talk, the more that their shared history is built on her family line and her lineage based on what they're sharing. But I like it. I think that's actually my absolute favorite part of this piece. There of course could be parts where we can cut down on the wordiness, but once again, this is a first draft, so we're not going to worry as much on style edits or grammar. We really want to focus on the story and see just how we can help out here. So let's get into it. And by the way, what did you like about it? Was there one of the characters that stood out? Did you like the fantasy vibe? Would you be able to guess that this was a romance, or that this was a romance, fantasy romance? Let's see, I want to make sure I read that right. And yeah, fantasy romance, so romantasy essentially. Okay. Hey, what's up, Cynthia? I saw you hop in there, by the way, as well. Let's see, Lynn, you said a lot of distancing language. She thought, she can see, etc. Just describing it would be closer to the audience. Yeah, so that's a really great call out. And you know what happens a lot of the time in rough drafts? Yeah, so Lynn, that was a good mention here. I'll throw that up. A lot of distancing language. She thought, she can see, etc. So this does happen a lot in rough drafts all the time. And even I do it myself, right? So when we start revising and we start cutting down on our on the drafts, as we get further along the process, we want to look for moments in our stories where you're using passive language. She saw the sun rise. Why have that extra pretext? She saw. Let us just experience it firsthand for the character. The sun, a magnificent spot of radiance dotted the horizon, right? But when you say she saw, it's like, okay, it's extra wordiness, right? And as writers, we always want to find areas where we can cut down on that wordiness. So definitely a good recommendation for when you get into the revision. And let's see. So when I look at what worked really well, Engi, I would say hands down, I'll just pop this a little bigger. Hands down, character development was absolutely the strongest part of this. I would say the character development was the strongest. I would say I did like the dialogue. I think it definitely does need to be cut down on wordiness. But this is stuff that can happen in more of the revision. So I wouldn't say the dialogue's necessarily taking away from readability. It's fine now. There's some interesting call outs on world building. Now, if I take the prologue into context, okay, I have a little bit more of a sense of world building. Seems like they're at some type of like magical academy, I think. I believe they're at a magical academy, but I'm not quite sure. And let's see, we got probably like 5 to 10 pages into this. I'm the capital, so I know that they said they're at a capital of some type of kingdom. So I'm not quite certain what the purpose of like the capital that they're at. But granted, we could be learning that in the next bit because it looked like that they're about to go meet somebody or do something. So we're probably going to explore some type of dynamic in the next scene. But I think if you're going to clarify it a little bit, it might help, even now that we're in Carmine's POV, to clarify like where are they specifically inside of this capital, because like this is great, capital superflua, but from a reader just hopping into it, great, what does that mean? So I think that would be my suggestion for world building. So far I'm liking the plot, and then of course we always got some fun style recommendations. So as I go through it, like I said, that's what I got for superflua, which she thought was frankly a quite on the nose name. I like her character POV here. I actually think this is interesting because you're using her POV to call out to world building, right? This is essentially world building, and then her interiority on it, which I think does work. I don't know if I like an M dash here. Of course, this is a hyphen. It should be an M dash, but I like. Assuming that this is an M dash, I don't know if I like using the M dash for that one. I almost feel like it would be stronger. I almost feel like actually that going a semicolon might be a little stronger. I'd have to play around with it. But yeah, I'd say this might be stronger. So you can let this sentence stand on its own instead of interrupting a previous thought. But that's me being subjective. Let's see, the rays of morning light, the pale skin that shimmered, and just fancy enough. Good. We're doing world building, and we're kind of setting up her character. Silver hair. I think what I like is you're trying to paint a picture with her character, silver hair, pale skin, and I think the one thing I wasn't sure is she is an elf, right? I'm pretty sure she's an elf. I wasn't 100% certain on that. I could have missed it, because Carmine had been told that human wine, right, was less tasteful than elven or draconian ones. Even when you set up here, it's like, okay, well, so this doesn't really say what her race is. I think we're assuming she's elven, but I don't think you outright say it. Now, you don't necessarily need to outright say it, but I do think you need to make it clearer for the reader at some point. Let's see, Woodward Consort. And of course, everybody knows how I feel about many questions back to back. So I have 1 question, 2, 3, 4. This is, I think the questions is just a pet peeve of mine personally. Now, are there times where you can do a few questions back to back? Absolutely, which is why I like the rule of threes. But there has to be intentionality there. When I think about it from a reader perspective, every single time you ask a question, the reader then wants to know the answer. So subconsciously, the reader is going to hold on to that first question. If you ask a question directly preceding it, now the reader has to hold on to two things that they want to know and they don't have the answer to. Now, if they're all important, sure, I get that. But what happens is every time you ask a new question preceding the previous one, it almost minimizes the importance of the previous question. How would she tell? Okay. Could she break the news that the charming and charismatic elven Duchess had no interest in her alliance? So this, I would say, isn't that important of a question. I would say this is the bigger, is the character interested, is something to do with an alliance. Would her parents, who made long strides to secure a railroad across their kingdom, understand she didn't want a marriage? Okay, so we're touching upon an alliance, but it's really about her parents wanting her to get married. Would her consort, who by human standards grew up his whole life being promised her hand, understand? So, okay. So I see what you're doing. You're basically doing a transition, alliance, marriage, understanding of the consort. I get that because you're building, you're trying to build inner conflict and tension and turmoil. I think this moment could be stronger if instead of posing these as questions, you have these as statements. I would say you have these as briefer statements, and then you hit it with the single question. And I think the single question would be more impactful. But that's just me as I kind of think about questions. That's editor hat coming on. Hey, what's up? I saw a couple of you guys hop in. Cynthia. Hey, what's up, Laura? Hope everything's treating you well, my friend. Now, I think my absolute favorite part of this Yeah, Mary, I would agree on the dialogue a bit. You're like, I'm a dialogue junkie, so I like the back and forth. I love, and this is, I think, where your piece is the strongest right now, Engi. We have this back and forth once Ouroboros comes in, and it's a playfulness, it's fun. This snake is a super cool character. The snake is like he's like my Alfred over here. I'm like, yes. He's like a kind of like a darker Alfred. I'm like, heck yeah, I like Ouroboros. The name's growing on me too. I was like, all right, I'm down for Ouroboros, the butler snake. Okay, cool. So you said a chuckle came from the elf while she looked at him. Okay, so you're saying here, as for a moment, I'm like, wait, who's the elf? Because you're still setting him up. I would introduce her I would mention that she's an elf before he comes in. Otherwise, they're just like, wait, is the new dude, is the snake, is like an elven snake? Since we don't really know the world yet. So I would just set that up sooner. And then you set him up here. So the arms and legs were fluid. The tail swayed and slithered as it walked, letting his tongue flick. I would just clean up this descriptor just a little bit. I was trying to get a clear picture of how the snake moved. So he has a tail, but he has legs. Yeah, so I would just clean this up just a little bit to make it absolutely clear. The tail swayed and slithered as it walked. So it's walking on legs. So it's a snake that walks on legs, but it has a slithering tail. And what does arms and legs were fluid? What does that mean? What does fluid arms and legs mean specifically? So I would just clean up simply because Ouroboros is such a cool character. So you want your reader to get a really good picture of him. And it's because I feel like you have a really clear sense of who his character is. 2 minutes and a half late. My oh my, the barbarians. I love that. Ouroboros is clearly our little bit of a comedic relief. He's our comedic sidekick character over here. Yeah, I love it. And yeah, and I mean the rest of it is really just their back and forth. Yeah, I would say the rest of it was really just the back and forth till we had got into the break. So yeah, Engi, that's all that I got for you, my friend. Like I said, the back and forth with them is amazing. I absolutely love the story so far. Taking the prologue into context It was a great read. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the story continues to evolve, and definitely feel free to resubmit if you want us to continue on in the story, or if you continue to revise some of these earlier parts. But definitely a really great read, my friend, and thanks so much for submitting. All right, excellent. So what a fun one. I absolutely love that. I think that's definitely a great start. I always love character duos like that. And by the way, if you're just hopping in here, welcome to the Story and Critique Show. We're just doing live story readings and live critiques. So if you're wanting feedback on your story, submit now. It's linked down in the YouTube description down below. Woo, all right. I love it, love it, love it. Oh, that's always a good start. Always a really good start. All right, so I feel like that was a good opening one. I'm going to pull up and see which one we can get to next. All right, so let's see which one we can help out with next. I think it looks like we're going to hop into. Let's see. Ooh. I love this. I think. Oh, this looks fun. All right. I think we're going to hop into some cosmic horror. Oh my goodness. All right, let's do it. I love this genre. Okay, so let me format this real quick. We're going to get to a couple stories today. All right, so I absolutely love this. So let's do this. Let me pull up. I think this is going to be absolutely a great one to play around with. Bear with me. And I absolutely love this because we were pretty caught up on our stories. We should be able to get to some of the ones that we've seen submitted today, which is absolutely phenomenal. Usually I'm too far behind to be able to do it. So we're going to get into this one. This is a really popular, this is a good genre, and I think this will be a good mix. Let's see. All right. And once again, I don't know why this is, but for some reason, the one genre that all of y'all love, like this is always goes time and time again, of all the genres that we do, everyone's favorite genre is always the thriller, mystery, horror genre. From a pure engagement standpoint, whenever I look at like analytics and data, that's always the one that keeps people watching and listening the most. I don't know why that is. You would think like, okay, maybe fantasy, because I'm a fantasy writer, so probably attract more like fantasy readers, but who knows? Maybe everyone just loves a good mystery. So let's get into it. What we're going to do is we're going to hop into a cosmic horror. We're going to mix it up, and let's see just how scared we can get. There's. It's like I realized I didn't frame that correctly. I wrote genre. Now reading. There we go. That should be better. Now reading. Don't Blink. This is a cosmic horror by author SHRK. All right, and excellent. Cosmic horror. I know, I completely agree. Laura is like the queen with like cosmic horror and like scary stuff and like creepy over here. Absolutely agree with that, Laura. Okay, so let's see what we can see. We're going to help out SHRK and see just what we can do with a little cosmic horror. And let's see, so I'm all ready, and let's do it. So, Don't Blink, a cosmic horror by author SHRK. And it looks like this is So this is flash fiction. So this is a piece of flash fiction. It's flash. It's always debatable on if I'm able to get through a full flash fiction or not. With the time, we might be. We'll see. It doesn't look very long. We might be able to. And it looks like they're currently revising the story right now, and they're just looking for general feedback. Ooh, I love it. All right, let's see what horrors we can get up to. In an observatory somewhere long lost, 126 years ago. Bella Claw worked through her papers, her tiny cubicle moist. Bella Claw worked through her papers, her tiny cubicle moist, from the never-ending coffee mugs that molded and settled around the wooden tables and brushed aside stacks of paper. The stars, charted, categorized, neatly displayed in tables with names and angles, and her steady hand that traced them onto the grid with practiced ease. Her eyes wide, unblinking, golden irises that spent too many nights staring at that singular, blasted dot that refused to make sense of itself. Please, let me be wrong, she muttered, gaze exchanging between her stacks of data and the neatly splayed sheet on which she made her star chart. The data piled, her regrets mounted. The numbers would not be right. Her hand picked up the paper and looked at it against candlelight. Yet again, the star refused. The dot was equally as unimportant as many others. It sat just above the horizon, as it had sat for the last thousands of years, if not millions. Stands above the skyline, just barely. The edges of the paper crumpled under her fingertips. This cannot be. It'll be a joke, she said, setting the paper aside and standing up. The open window let a view of the fields below. The hill on which her house was built gave her an ample gaze of the mountains and valleys, a deliberate choice. Her telescope stayed there, pointed outwards, towards the endless night. She walked up to it, curious. She checked upon the data, the angles her telescope must meet. She turned the gears and peered in, a blurry, pure white sphere that sat in the center of her circular view through the lenses and mirrors. Bella Claw pulled away, heart thumping, breath heavy. The voice was heavy, even if inaudible. The words didn't arrive. You looked. Bella Claw pulled away, heart thumping, breath heavy. You looked. The voice was heavy, even if inaudible. The words didn't arrive so much as they appeared in her mind, forcing her brain to endure whiplash. She looked at the telescope, and seeing the pitch black beyond the stars scared her now. The sweat went down her forehead. The throat is closing shut. Bella Claw raises a hand to her chest and feels her skin, disgusting. Her hand jerks away. She steps back. The sky above is hidden as she turns around. The sight of the note-covered wall made her lungs calm. Her thoughts slowed. The sensation of being out of her body, like if she'd invited a kidnapper who took her place, had stopped. She turned to the telescope, throat closed in a hard and dry swallow. But the feeling permeated the unease. Her hands reached out, shaky, towards the gears while she put his closed eye in the socket. Even if her eyelid blocked her own sight, she could feel pressure, like a gentle finger poking inwards towards her eye. Bella Claw opened her eye to greet the fuzzy, unfocused image of a planetary body, previously a smooth white, now at two concentric circles in the middle, one with a bright blue of a sky and a darker one in the middle, like the earth beneath it gave way into an abyss that swallowed all light. Pressure. But at the same time, she pursed her lips that twisted into a grin without her permission. The hands at the gears turned to focus on the object without a command. Look, look, look. A voice in her head, banging on her skull with force that still hurt but dulled itself quickly, like that of an anesthetic injection. Her eyes widened, compelled, eyelids tearing themselves open to observe. And so she did. The gears turned, the planet came into view, and at some indistinct point between looking and perceiving, the astronomer found herself still and out of herself. Bella Claw watched. No, not watching. She wasn't seeing through her own eyes, just perceiving the environment to a degree she could barely grasp, showing knowledge she couldn't hope to understand. This feeling, The weightlessness of herself, the fact she could see herself looking through the telescope, eyes bleeding and body slumped against it. She could see the valley. She could see her house. She saw the river and the fish and the tiny, tiny people in the cities and towns. I know you looked. I know you see. Keep watching. The planets, the intricate motion of the planets, the smooth white of the planet that now Belaclaw could see so clearly, but in a strange way could not process. It was bigger than the one she lived on, big enough that the center abyss could swallow the entirety of it and leave room for way more. Much bigger than any planet should be, but not colossal enough to match a star. The perfect, uneasy balance of being just big enough to make everything else seem small, while not calling to itself. The pupil focused, the eye watched intently. At another indistinct point, Belaclaw simply ceased to exist. The planet didn't. It kept watching through the telescope lens, like if it watched enough, the astronomer would walk again and keep looking. Why can't you look? I did everything right. She kept staring. The sleeping one under the waves kept dreaming. The consuming beasts kept expanding. The planet orbited still. That somehow made it worse. She couldn't hear herself. No, that would cause this world to grow sterile. She couldn't reach beneath the waves to ask for comfort. She could only stand by and watch the dreams. The eye watched, eager to be watched back. She wondered how she looked like, if they would find her beautiful, if her lake was as deep as she felt, if her blue was as vibrant and smooth as she imagined, if the colors she found pretty they would find pretty, but still, the astronomer was dead. Ah, I see. You can't watch anymore. How curious. I wonder if we would have been friends. I wonder if you would have liked the things I do. If you could tell me more, if you could tell me about the forests and deserts. If I asked, would you have? Maybe if I asked in a way you could understand. Maybe if I watched more carefully. Would you have looked up at me and called me your friend instead of your witness? Maybe. It doesn't matter now. But I'll remember. I watched all you did until now. I was so eager for you to watch me. You did. I will remember you. Thank you. Wow. All right. And reading. What a fun little piece of flash fiction. What a fun flash fiction, man. That was great. Mary and Laura. I absolutely thought the same thing. Shark, if you're watching this on live or the replay, I totally thought the same thing. Any Doctor Who fan knows the don't blink reference. Absolutely one of my all-time favorite episodes. I think the Weeping Angels tends to be a favorite of any Doctor Who fan of all the antagonists. And if you haven't watched Doctor Who, essentially the Don't Blink is the name of the episode the first time the Weeping Angels are introduced. Essentially, the Weeping Angels are statues of angels, kind of like, like usually you see around cathedrals. They're basically statues. They're a sentient race that, in reality, they're basically like tethered as creatures, as these like statue creatures. When you look at them, they're statues. When you don't look at them, they move. They can only move when unseen. So the characters are put into this realm where anytime they blink, the statues get closer to them. If they get touched by the statue, they basically get teleported to another time, because the statues, these weeping angels, basically kind of eat their lifespan. It's really creepy, very iconic episode. Absolutely, probably one of the strongest David Tennant episodes for sure. But back to the story. So, man, that was a very fun story, by the way. That was a very, very fun story. I loved that. Wow. I'm like, we got such this like creepy astronaut or astronomer vibe, as it kind of feels like they're like by themselves, alone. It seems like they're alone on this planet, somewhere in space. Like they're on a mission to like like track something across the stars, and where you definitely feel the solitude of the character. You definitely feel their loneliness, and you feel and you understand that something is wrong. We know that something is wrong, and I think you did a good job of that with setting up the tension. Now, I'm asking myself, was I quite clear on how they died, or was the astronomer always dead? And I think that was the part that was a little foggy on my end. I liked it. I think it was a great twist. I do think it was a great twist with this voice who was like watching her, but okay, no, she's dead. Yeah, so let's get into it, because that was actually a really fun piece of flash fiction. So when I look into it, I would say world building was phenomenal. Really great job on your world building. Dialogue you did a great job. The dialogue that you do have is very impactful and does a great job at furthering tension. I think our biggest opportunity is plot, simply because it needs to be just a little cleaned up, so that way it's crystal clear what happens to the reader. Yeah, and then the character development was fun. I would say I might question the character development of like the entity just a little bit, but we can get into that. So we have our in an observatory somewhere long lost 126 years ago. All right, never-ending coffee mugs. And you do a good job of setting it up, right? She's an astronomer by herself. I like that. Bella Claw is like charting the stars, it seems. And I think you do a good job of capturing her loneliness. You do a great job of capturing the lonely astronomer on a distant planet at like the end of like somewhere in the universe. Cosmic horror vibes, love it. Let's see, please let me be wrong. Do a good job of setting up tension here. I liked that. It's always really well done when you can use short, concise dialogue. It feels intentional, and it does build tension. So really great work with that. Let's see, the data pilot. And once again, because this is still an early revision, we're not worrying about line edits as much. I'm not going to worry about grammar, right? We know this should be dialogue, comma, she, but we're not going to worry about it as much. We want to make sure that developmentally the story's in a good place. Let's see, her hand picked up the paper. Let's see that again. Oh, I love that. Her hand picked up the paper and looked at it against candlelight. Yet again, the star refused. It's like, I don't quite understand this. No, okay, from the reader perspective, I don't quite understand it, but it's cool, and I like it. Keep it as is. It's interesting, because you can tell this is intentional. That's fun. So it's kind of B. Something's obviously wrong with the stars. And once again, the world building you're doing here is phenomenal. Her telescope stayed there, pointed outward towards the endless night. Love it. Okay, so, and this is always my thing with formatting. SHRK, I think I probably said the same thing, I think, with one of your previous excerpts. I forgot if it was you who submitted the, what was that, like the artist story. It might have been, because the writing feels a little similar in style. But with formatting, I missed this at first, because as readers, we're so used to left to right, just as from a US market. So this formatted all the way over here threw me off for a bit. Now I understand, because you're using this as an emphasis and as a point. And granted, like, this is such, formatting it like this is a very much like, what's that word? Experimental. This is very much like an experimental type fiction thing to do, where you kind of mess around with formatting and you do different things. So yeah, so I mean, like, the thing, like, it can work. It just threw me off. Something that I might recommend if you want to make it a little bit more readable is, instead of putting the creature's voice all the way to the right, just indent. So when you structure, kind of treating it more like a block text, you always keep it formatted over so we know it's different. But I might just do that and keep the creatures, like, their text always formatted, and you're just formatting it slightly differently. A little bit minutia, and then of course, if you ever publish it, you'll have to deal with the formatting side of it as well. But just a recommendation. I'm intrigued now that, like, I saw, I'm like, okay, I'm intrigued. You looked interesting. What does that mean? She saw something she shouldn't have. Good job on increasing the tone and the tension. The throat is closing shut. I would say I would go with her. The sweat went down. I would say her throat is closing shut. Bella raises her hand to her chest and feels her skin disgusting. Bella raises her hand to her chest and feels her skin disgusting. I would just reword that. Feels her skin, or should this be skin, comma, disgusting? Or almost like it feels her skin like disintegrating or molting, or I think so that we could just clarify that. Let's see. Okay, so she's having an out-of-body experience. The sensation of being out of her body. I think I would adjust this. I would adjust just this. What's that metaphor? Simile. I'm having a brain fart. Yep, simile. So I would. Yeah, of course. I fix this all the time. So I think this is an interesting simile. Like if she had invited a kidnapper who took her place. For me personally, this specific simile kind of pulled me out of the moment. But the sensation of being out of her body, like this was such a good moment. I might just adjust what the simile is or not use a simile, at least for this specific sentence. But just some food for thought. Okay, so she's basically having this. She basically saw something, had an out of body experience when she saw it. Um, okay, so she saw something she shouldn't have, something cosmic, and I think it basically pulled her soul, or pulled her consciousness into this cosmic sphere. She becomes like an entity in a sense, and she's watching herself on the planet. Okay, so I think that made enough sense to me. Um, I think the way that I would clean it up is I would just make it really clear with like two lines that she is definitively this like voidless, and she's definitively came this like entity, or her consciousness is in space. That's really the way that I'm perceiving it. Her consciousness is in space. It makes sense. She's looking down on the planet, um, and then she's watching. She could see her house, so she's watching herself. She's watching her planet. Um, this one's white, and this I'm assuming this is her planet. So I'm assuming she is watching her own planet. But if she's looking down, my question is, if she's watching herself, is she still seeing her body down there? So is like her soul and her entity is in space. Is she has she herself been entirely transported into space? Or is it just her soul? It's like her consciousness has been pulled into space by this cosmic being. Probably like some cosmic horror. So the pupil focused the eye watched intently. At another indistinct point, Belliclaw simply ceased to exist. At another indistinct point, Belliclaw simply ceased to exist. The planet didn't. It kept watching through the telescope lens. Like if it watched enough, the astronomer would walk again and keep looking. Why can't you look? Staring, the sleeping one under the waves kept dreaming. The continuing base kept expanding. The planet orbited. Okay, so I think what happened, if this is if this is right to me, I think the entity basically swapped consciousness with her. I think that's what happened. So I think we have this astronomer lost in space. She's mapping the stars, and she sees something. She basically spots a cosmic entity. A cosmic entity recognizes her and swaps consciousness, or swaps. I think they swap consciousness. So then she is herself. She's become this cosmic, or she's now in the place of where the cosmic entity was, and the cosmic entity is now in her body. It seems like she kind of goes back and forth a couple of times, but then staying too long in this the cosmic space basically kills her consciousness, probably because as a human, she's probably too her mind probably just can't exist, maybe, or her body can't exist without her mind, or her mind is just not strong enough for to live in such like a cosmic horror, this like environment. That's what it seems like, I'm pretty sure. um I haven't. I'll check on chat in just a second, but like, let me know, what did you guys think? What it does that feel like that's what the story was? And I think part of it is like, okay, you want the reader to be like guessing and think like, okay, like that's cool. I love this concept. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. This is a great piece of flash fiction, by the way. I think what I would do is I think I would just clean up the moments, those change moments. So the moment that she first goes into the entity, I would make that crystal clear. The moment that she dies, you see that she dies. You have this moment where she's like, all right, her body dies, but I think you just need to make it a little clearer. What does that mean? Is her consciousness dead? It seems like her body's still there. So I think I would just try to make that even more obvious, those transition moments, for the reader's sake. So that way the reader doesn't have to spend time being confused or potentially being confused, because it's such a cool concept. So yeah, that's my recommendation. I love the ending. Yeah, I absolutely love this. And this is the one thing where it's like, yeah, guys know I always say like no questions back to back. For some reason, these questions actually kind of worked for me this time. And I think it's because it feels normal for this creature, because it's kind of like a creature trying to understand what it is to be inside a human mind. So I was actually all right with it that time. That was fun. Love the ending. Really great ending. And really great work, Shark. Thank you so much for submitting, my friend. What a great, fun little read. Oof. Man, I love that. Oof. That was fun. Always love cosmic horror. So, Shark, thank you so much for submitting. And of course, if you are just hopping into the stream, welcome to the Story and Critique Show. We're doing live readings of stories and live critiques. So if you want feedback on your story, submit now. It's linked down in the YouTube description down below. And I will drop the link one more time for anyone not on the YouTube channel. With well over, what was I saying? With well over 300 stories critiqued live and many, many more to come. This is definitely a fun vibe. There you go. I just dropped that. So, awesome. Wow. And I definitely saw you guys' comments coming through. I could tell you guys were definitely really intrigued by that story. I'll be hopping into another story in just a moment as I kind of take a little stretch break. You know what? I was like, I'm trying to be better about stretching in between these streams, especially when I start going for hours. All right. Let's see what y'all... Let's see what y'all thought about that one. A bit of Hellstar Remina. You said this reminds you a bit of Hellstar Remina by Junji Ito. I haven't read that one, but I'm guessing it's kind of like the cosmic horror vibe. Yeah, definitely a couple sentence fragments. I think it's just like things to be aware of when you go through the revision. Absolutely. Sentence fragments are always a good thing to keep in mind. I personally have used way too many sentence fragments in Scarecrow. I've done a lot of them with intentionality, but now my readers are like, Yeah, sometimes it pulls them out. And I'm like, all right, too many sentences for fragments. Yeah, I get it. I know. As editor, I would say the same thing. So don't use too many sentence fragments. All right. Yeah, so you said, I thought it was just from beholding the observer that killed her. It could have been. And I think part of the author's intent is they want the reader to kind of be questioning what actually killed her. My guess is that's part of the experience they want. And of course, Shark, this comes down to you. Like, what questions do you want the reader to be asking yourself, right? If you want the reader to like know exactly how they died, clarify that. If you don't want the reader to be guessing how they died, then just clarify the transitions from each point. It's a good call out, Eli. Yeah, I kind of got that sense as well. Like, I feel like the reason they died is because it was involved with this like cosmic being of some shape, right? Because the moment that change happened is when the telescope pointed at a specific point in space that she probably wasn't supposed to see, where this cosmic horror existed. What a creepy concept. You looking at the wrong point of space at the wrong time. Ugh. Sends chills. That's one of the reasons we love cosmic horror, isn't it? Oh, you know what, Laura? That's a really good call out. Yeah, that's a really good. You're absolutely right. I missed that in the live reading itself. I mean, this is probably because I was doing it as a live reading. The planet is described as an eye with concentric circles with a blue iris and a dark pupil. But the MC never outright makes the convention. It is a literal eye. It's just labeled as an eye in later descriptions. I think that would be a powerful moment to dramatize. Completely agree. Like I said, I missed that in the reading, but now that you're saying that, I remember that. And that's such a powerful moment because we want to understand what it looks like. Even if this being like basically is killing her from the moment she sees it, I think having that descriptor could be so powerful for you because that's actually really cool. And it's not just the description of it, it is our MC's Bella Claw's understanding of what it is that she's seeing, even if it's very brief. Yeah, Cynthia, I saw you said you had a question. Yeah, definitely go for it. Drop the question in the comments if you haven't already. Looks like I'm still catching up on comments here. Go for it, my friend. We're always happy to help out writers here. Any writing related questions, 100%. I think that's as well, Eli. I definitely picked up on that as well. I think we get the sense that this cosmic being doesn't understand time as a construct, probably because this cosmic being is timeless. Is my guess. So they have no construct of time, and now they're kind of seeing things. It seems like through a human consciousness, and they don't understand. It's almost like it. What's so interesting is it's kind of like an infant, even though it's this cosmic entity. They're now kind of awareness is coming to life as almost like an infant because they don't understand. And they want to understand, which is truly fascinating. Love that concept. Yeah, I'd agree with that, Eli. You said you feel like it did a good job of capturing the coldness and insignificance of human life to the entity, even though it seemed to care in its way that a person is just dead now and some unknowable being promises to remember her. Yeah, I'd agree. Wow. So what a fun flash fiction, right? And I would say, Shark, even with all the revision recommendations, I think this is definitely a really solid piece. Flash fiction is difficult for anybody um, for anybody who has not read or not written flash fiction before, you have such a short amount of time, right? Usually 1,000 words. Here in the Right Now community, we've generally done them as like 2,000 words, but you have such a short amount of time to set up characters, do a little world building, set up a clear plot, and make the reader care in under 1,000 to 2,000 words. Doing flash fiction is definitely not an easy thing to do. So anytime anyone is able to pull off flash fiction well, always my hat goes off to them, because that's really, really great work. Really, really great job done. And speaking of flash fiction, this is a wonderful, important, beautiful call out. For those of you who didn't know, I'm so proud to announce that the Freaky Friday anthology has officially gone live. The Freaky Friday anthology from the 2025 Freaky Friday anthology is officially live. We published it yesterday. So we published the ebook edition of the Freaky Friday anthology. I know. It took me a little longer to get out, but the Freaky Friday anthology is officially live. We had such a fun time with the community when we did our Freaky Friday flash fiction competition last October. This was our third writing competition where writers basically submitted stories. We read them live, and then the finalists were narrowed down and chosen to be published in the anthology. So we officially published it yesterday, and I will drop the link for anyone who wants to go check out the anthology. It's a good read. Actually, this just actually works out really well with the cosmic horror vibe. But I'll drop the link for anyone who wants to go check it out. Go pick up a copy on Amazon. Here we go. So to go grab the flash fiction anthology. And perfect. It's also linked. Did I link it? Actually, I don't know if I linked down the YouTube description. But there you go. So for anyone who wants to pick up a copy of the Freaky Friday, the 2025 Freaky Friday Flash Fiction Anthology, there are some absolutely fun stories in there. It's available on Amazon. Great way to check out the writers here in the community. Great way to support the Right Now community. Excellent. So, yep, Freaky Friday Anthology. And yeah, I was like, I was like, make sure I gave you guys like the right link. I was like, yeah, okay, cool. I was like, I did do the right link. I'm glad. Yep. So here we go. So perfect. Available on Amazon. Super cool. And yeah, support the community. Yay. What a perfect way to transition after the cosmic horror piece. Okay. So with that one, now that Freaky Friday is live, we're going to go on to our next story. You're like, yay, just bought my copy. Absolutely love it, Courtney. And then, of course, we will be launching, I will finish work on both paperback editions of Faded Fantasy and this Freaky Friday anthology this summer. Once I'm done with Scarecrow, we got to get Scarecrow out. It's been about 2.5 years. Got to get my debut novel out. And then I'll return my attention to finishing these anthologies. Okay. So with that, let's see, what do we got next? So let me go back and check and see what our next story is. See what we got here. All right, so let's see, we did Engis and sharks. All right, so let's hop into, so we're going to mix it up now. We're going to go from cosmic horror. We're going to dive into some let's see, hold on just a second. Let me see, because I saw a couple of y'all turn in submissions. So let me see what we got. We got a couple of submissions today. All right, so cool. So we got two quicker submissions. All right, so Mary, let's help you out. We're gonna dive into some fantasy, and we're gonna help Mary out with her story. So Mary, I have your story up here. we're going to hop into Crystals. This is a light fantasy by Mary. So let's see if we can help Mary out with her story. And for those of you who've been a part of the community, we've gone through different chapters of the Crystals over time. And I know Mary's taken it through some revisions since we had last seen it. So we're going to see just what we can see to help Mary out. All right, and I think I am all ready. All right, so now reading Crystals. This is a light fantasy by Mary. And let's see, what do they need help with? All right, so this is, let's see, so this is a first draft. This chapter is a first draft. And once again, this is a novel. And then they just want to know, is this too much backstory? Okay, so the thing that they specifically want to know is the backstory too much? Is it pulling us away from the main narrative that we're seeing? Okay, so let's see what we see. Chapter 15, Zello's POV. Fall came early, and a sudden, bitter cold proved winter was not far behind. Although the staff had been making preparations, King Wyatt was hesitant to leave before he had procured the crystals. What if I was to remain? Zello suggested. You know how much trouble you have in the winter weather with your shoulder. It will be much worse here. I would only require the smallest of staff. I don't mind at all, and I can keep up the search. Perhaps a few guards could also stay behind to aid in that endeavor. He put on his most innocent face. Zelos, my friend and confidant, you know I would trust you with my very life. What you propose might be worth considering. However, you know how much I rely on you for the winter advisory meetings with the High Council. We will be entertaining some very important allies. He paused. No, I think you should prepare to leave with me. We'll delay as long as possible, but must leave before the snow begins. Perhaps other arrangements can be made. I just thought, with the possibility of the crystals so close to being found, I should stay. With some guards, yes, the king completed the sentence. So you said. I will need the best of them for the journey, and later for security at the meetings. Again he paused with his hand under his chin and stared at nothing in particular. I will consult with Armin. I would like his thoughts as well. Even though he failed so miserably at his last task, he has generally been reliable, and I value his opinion when it comes to protection. The tight line of his lips showed just how much Zelos, not happy with this, but said, You could suggest the few newest ones to remain. We'll see. Have Armin come up. I will speak with him now. As you wish, sire. With a flourish of his coat, he left the throne room. On his way down to the guards' quarters, Zelos was considering the options. He would prefer to remain. It would be no more than an inconvenience to be in the Winter Palace. Still, if he could stay in this area, it would mean that many less eyes and ears around him. A few of his chosen guards and a very limited household staff would be plenty. Either way, he would need to keep contact with Merrick to monitor his progress. Zello sent one of the younger pages to fetch Armin. The captain and his guards were talking in the courtyard. Armin's POV. Okay, so then scene break, essentially. And we just go. Pardon, sir, he began. What is it? What is it, boy? Armin tried not to sound too annoyed at the interruption. Master Zelos told me to tell you King Wyatt wants to see you in the throne room. Armin frowned at the child's use of the term master. Very well. Run along. He turned to Ferris. Take the men through their writing routines. I'll return as soon as I can. He walked away as casually as he could. The last time he was in the presence of the king, he left in disgrace and humiliation. At least unpresentable this time. He took a deep breath before mounting the steps to the palace. Let's see, Merrick's POV. About the same time, Merrick was taking a short rest back to refresh himself with some food and water. The wind was what he referred to as squirely and seasonably cold. He watched a flock of birds fly over. He never knew which was which, as he sat on the ground with his back against a large tree. Rifling in his bag for his food, he felt his good luck crystal. Taking it out also, he gazed at it while he ate, and recalled that merciless day it redefined who he was. The hour he was born. His older sister, Lavinia, at 8 years old, was half a mile away at school. There was only an aged midwife to help his mother with the delivery. It was a day of great joy and great sorrow. Merrick would not know this. Only the two of them knew he was really a twin, but the daughter was lost in the birth, which was difficult. He never knew who his father was. When he turned 10, his mother died during the pox outbreak that took many lives. On her deathbed, his mother had given the orb to his sister, Lavinia, now 18, who had been training as a healer. She was a quick learner and was quite adept. Merrick was naturally very curious, to say the least, and spent time spying on her. When she caught him so threatened to tan his hide, so he wouldn't be able to sit for a month, she also told him that since he was a boy, he would never be able to use the crystal anyway. Still, he listened at closed doors and peered in windows to learn what she could do with the small glass-like ball and rituals she used. On that terrible night, Lavinia was bossing him about as usual, taking off his chores on her fingers. He was so mad at her being nagging, he stole her crystal and threatened to break it. The chasing got out of hand as he ran to the barn. She died in the fire that started when he knocked over the lamp. Being only 10 years old, he watched helplessly as she perished in the flames, trying to save the old cow and the swayback horse. Sickened by the smell of the burning hand flesh, he ran. Over time, his shock and guilt mutated to anger and bitterness. He learned to fight and fear no one. Life had never been fair, so why should he be? In his twisted memory, it was the crystal that had saved his life. Over the years, he thought it was a good luck charm. He kept it close. He fell in with some truly horrible men who used and mistreated him, often bare him, and threatened his life more than once if he ever tried to leave or betray them. So it came as no surprise that, as a man, it was as vile as they had been. He did whatever came his way. No job was off limits. He would do truly anything for the right price. Eventually, he developed quite a reputation for getting things done and, if well paid, discretion, which is how he came to the notice of the king's advisor. With no home or family to consider, he could go anywhere and name his price. He put the crystal back in his satchel, stood and donned his coat. He was refreshed and ready to continue with his latent undertaking. Alive and well. I'll have to remember that. All right, excellent, excellent. End reading. Mary, so I definitely have to say, what I really love, especially as I've continued to see crystals come to life, I love seeing how your characters are evolving. So we have the 3 different focuses in this chapter. We, of course, have Zelos, our Jafar-like character. We have the guard captain, Armin, or I think he's our master of the guard type character. And then we have our rogue assassin, Merrick. So what this chapter is doing, it's doing a bit of character development and plotting. I think the overall formatting of this chapter works. I think that does work well. I like the transition from Zelos to Armin to a Merrick. I think that actually does work. That does work for me. I would say even as I think about it, I love overall Zelos and Merrick as characters. I don't feel like we get like too much about Armin, so it's kind of harder for me to kind of like get like a gut feeling about who he is. I would say right now the character development is definitely working. I think we could definitely have some opportunities to kind of strengthen the present, the actions, and the description of what's going on a little bit more, just so we can kind of see more of their personalities in the moment. What we're doing is right now you're telling us a lot about these characters through their backstory. And I know your biggest question was, is this too much backstory? I'm going to say yes, too much backstory. But here's why. It's only too much backstory because we're not getting enough present moment actions for us to have fun with the character, the recollection of the present moment. So let's hop into that, and I'll show you kind of where I'm coming from. All right. So starting off with Zelos, and of course, once again, we also have to recognize we're in chapter 15. We're in chapter 15. So we've already had 14 chapters of story and setup. All these characters have probably been set up already. We should already have an understanding. My guess is Zelos has already been set up. And I remember reading previous versions with the Zelos setup. So we should already have an understanding of Zelos' character. I think the one thing I'm really wanting more out of Zelos' PO chapter is I want more of his like snaky like personality. Like I want him to do like a couple things that like Jafar, like the types of things Jafar does. Right now you're relying heavily on his words, developing his character, which works. That's fine. But I want more of him like flushing around the king with his like staff and being like, but is that really necessary? Like I want to like kind of see more of those like kind of snaky type moments. And I think you could do that. Like he glided across, or he slithered, or he glided towards the king, almost like a snake slithering to its master. Like things like that. I almost want like similes and metaphors that kind of make us feel like a little like snaky Jafar. Like I want more of those descriptors as the present moment, in addition to the dialogue work that you're doing right now. I think his dialogue is working, but give me more, because I want to feel his personality more. I want to be like, and of course, like this kind of depends on how you want us to feel about him, but I feel like Jafar is such a great character. Why is Jafar a Jafar from Aladdin? Why is Jafar an iconic villain? Because he's in that universe. He's a little cringy. He's like cringy snake, but he's evil. When he is first introduced and set up as a character, he's just kind of like a little bit more like quiet advisor like character. But there's always that undertone that something's off about him until he kind of takes over. Yep. So and it kind of feels like this is definitely like a very, very similar vibe. So yeah, so I'd say give us a little bit more actions with Zelos. That would be my suggestion for the first part. And I think with Zelos, I think what you could do is you could shorten his dialogue a little bit. And of course, like you're in the revision. But I would say his character kind of seems like he would be a little bit like less is more. Like, does he really need to over-explain? Because, like, you can tell, like, right, he's trying to, he wants the guards, right, for some reason. Probably to off the kids is my guess. But, yeah, I would almost say that, like, you know how much trouble you have in the winter weather. And I get why. So, okay, this is my two recommendations. Either shorten his dialogue or intersperse his dialogue with more action bits. You know how much trouble you have in the winter weather with your shoulder. He glided around the king, leading him to an outlook, right? Or just like things that would make him feel kind of snaky. And then of course we want the king to be very, I think the king is I'm getting the sense that the king's oblivious, kind of like the Sultan. I guess the king's oblivious. Let's see. Okay. Yep, and then we're just kind of doing some plotting. So I think that's my biggest advice for the first bit. And this last bit is kind of just a transition to Armon. I like the transition at the end of Zelos' POV to Merrick. I think that does work. Okay. When we transition to Armon's POV, basically this is one of the pages. I wasn't sure who this was at first because this is a POV transition, so it's going to be a scene beat. Pardon, sir. This could be anyone. Now, you said younger page here, but you just want to clarify, anytime you have a new scene, we need to set up all the characters. Pardon, sir. The younger page began. A young page with Nair, with barely a hair on his chin, began, right? Give us a little bit of a descriptor there. So just make sure we set that up so we know where we're at. What is it, boy? Armin tried not to sound too annoyed at the interruption. Master's house told me to, yep, so we had set that up. Armin found the child's use of the term master. Very well run along. I think somewhere in here, let's see, I'll return to he walked. So, okay, so we're basically doing the setup, the transition of here. I think the only challenge with the Armon scene right now is, he took a deep breath, what does this scene accomplish? This is my question to you. What does the Armon scene accomplish? And why are we including it? Because right now, nothing changes. Because at the end of this scene, we already knew that the king was going to send for Armon. So this scene, let's say I could like take the scene out, and right now nothing changes. What it seems like is you want this scene to be here so we get introduced to Armon as a POV. For that to work, I need a little bit more interiority from Armon. I want to be able to connect and understand, right? You did some good setup for the character, right? The king had said he wants Armon's opinion, even though he failed so miserably. Now, of course, my guess is you probably set up Armon previously. But I think even with Armon set up previously, we need to understand, even though he's just going to the king, we need some type of internal conflict of, okay, what is going to change this time? I need some type of change from this scene beat here. Maybe he's not going to tell the king the truth this time. Maybe he's going to do it differently. So I think by giving us some type of internal conflict for Armon, that'll make this beat for Armon a little bit more intentional. So, all right, and then let's see. So, and then we go to Merrick. Okay, so he's basically looking at the crystal and then reflecting on the day his sister died, which I think that setup works. I think what you can do is, I think similar with the Zello scene, I would just continue to intersperse his backstory with a little bit of present moment actions. There was only an aged midwife. It was a day of great joy and great sorrow. Merrick stood up, took a dagger, and flicked it at the tree, right? I think you could just intersperse it just a little bit, but I think you could do things that kind of give us more character development, right? And you could he picked up the dagger and tossed it 100 yards. It hit the apple squarely right? Show that he's an expert with weapons. So I think you can do things that help us develop his character as he's kind of thinking through his backstory. Never knew his father was. When he turned 10, his mother died during the pox. Yep, Lavinia, magic arc was naturally. Yeah, so I think what I would do is, I think if I were to work on this, I think I would add 2 present moment actions of just him doing something that adds to his character. I would do one after you do the setup for his backstory, and then I would do another thing at another present moment right before the terrible night, right? So because then the question that we'd ask is like, okay, well, why Merrick knows this? Why is Merrick rethinking through this night? It's probably because it's one of the worst nights of his life, right? So of course he reflects on it, and something about the crystal is what made him think about it. Okay. He gripped the crystal. He looked at the crystal, gripping it hardly. Blood was trailing down his hands from how tight he was gripping it. Right, something to that effect. And that terrible night, Lavinia was bossing about. And just the structure of this, I like how you do this bit of the backstory. I would save the she died for the end of the paragraph, right? You want the death moment to be profound, and right now she died, it's kind of lost in the middle here. The chasing got out of hand as he ran to the barn. Being only 10 years old, he watched helplessly as she perished in the flames trying to save the old cow. So I think I would fix this slightly. The chase got out of hand as he ran to the barn. As he ran to the barn, he wanted to go in and help, but he was too afraid, so he ran outside. She ran inside to try to save and do the stuff. He watched helplessly. She died, right? I think end the paragraph on she died, right? So because it just builds up the tension a little stronger for this moment. Over time, his shock and guilt mutated to anger and bitterness. He learned to fight and fear no one. Life had never been fair, so why should he? His twisted memory was the crystal that had saved his life. He fell in with some truly horrible men who used to mistreated him, often beat him and threatened his life. They had been. And then more basically transition. And then you're kind of using this last beat as kind of who he has become today. Yeah, and I mean, I think this works. I was like going back and forth. It's like, is it necessary? Yeah, it is necessary. It's doing his character development. So we understand he's a rogue. He's a not so good rogue. And essentially, if I pull back on the character development, his character is designed to create tension for our heroes, right? So we're really trying to make him as kind of like this despicable rogue as possible. Yeah, and I really like his backstory. I actually really I like his character a lot. I actually really do like his character a lot. His character is actually really cool. And I think somewhere in the middle of in between this bit, you could have like a final present moment action beat. Something showing that he's kind of despicable. He pulled a trophy out of his bag, right? The ear of the last guy he had killed, or the thing of his last victim, right? I think have him do something in the present moment that shows how despicable he is, right? Because we want to you're telling us a lot of his backstory, which does work, but I want to be shown something that he's doing, some type of action about why we should dislike him even more. That could be, Mary, that would actually be a really good idea. That'd be a really good idea. So what if in the present moment, he's actually, instead of him sitting at his camp, he's actually hunting an animal? That would actually be a really, really smart thing. Like, what if, like, while he's thinking about his story, he's like tracking and hunting down an animal. Maybe he hits the animal squarely, not realizing what it is. You could come up with something. And then it shows like the present moment is him tracking it. He gets to the end and he lets the animal live. I think that could be cool. Fatal flaw. It really depends on if you want how you want the reader to view him. Do you want the reader to hate Merrick? Do you want the reader to completely dislike him? Or do you want the reader to try to understand Merrick? Maybe what you could do is have him kill a human. Like, I feel like this would actually be more powerful if we have him, instead of him sitting at camp, him like tracking down one of his targets. He kills a human, but the human dies and falls face flat. So we show that he's kind of a vicious character. But then from underneath the human, a little puppy comes out. He bends down. He gets to one knee. You go through the backstory at the end. He gets to one knee. He takes the dog by the neck, and we think he's going to kill it. And he pats its head. Shoo, get out of here. So you could do something like that. I think that could actually be really powerful, right? Okay, he's vicious. I think that would actually be smart because you want to show that he's going to be an obstacle for our heroes, the children. Maybe he hates kids. Perfect. Maybe he's always hated kids, those little shits. Because maybe he hated himself when he probably because he hates himself because he was unable to help his sister when he was a kid. But he has a fondness for animals. So I would say something to that effect could be really cool. And I think if you have him doing some type of action, it'll make his scene specifically a lot more stronger. So, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and like you can could be cool to examine it. Those ideas are at odds. Yeah, and I mean once again, it just depends on what it just really depends on how you want the reader to feel about the character. We're kind of getting the sense that he's supposed to be an assassin, which means that you're really trying to build tension for him for the heroes. Which means that you want to show that he's a ruthless. If he's supposed to kill them, then you want to show that he's a ruthless killer of some type. If you want to show that there's a conflict to him, then you can create the conflict. It might not be necessary during this scene if the goal is just to set him up as an antagonist. It really depends on how his character is going to evolve throughout the story and what his role is, what he accomplishes in relation to the kids, to our heroes. Yep, exactly, Courtney. Like you're like how even the Grinch loves Max. Absolutely right. But we do have to remember the Grinch in the traditional Grinch story. Grinch is set up as an antagonist, right? So even though the classic, the Grinch story, absolutely love that. Grinch is set up as a pure antagonist throughout the first 75% of the story. His heart is too cold. He's mean. He's cruel. He hates Christmas. Bah humbug. But we don't get that moment of the Grinch has a heart until we get to, I want to say about, what's that, like 50? It's probably the midpoint. I think that's the midpoint of the story. It's either the midpoint or the next beat. But we don't get that humanizing moment with the Grinch until we've already been introduced to him as a villain, right? And then it creates that contrast, and we're like, oh, interesting. And then, of course, the music. It's all fun. That's a good way to look at it, though, Courtney. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point, right? And once again, people love villains, right? Everybody loves Darth Vader, right? Everybody loves Voldemort. Everybody loves villains, right? Thanos, all the villains. People love villains, right? You can have villains doing evil things. But I think then we ask ourselves, why do people like villains? Because they follow some type of code. It's like a power fantasy in a sense. And villains usually start off as good people originally before their life made them villainous. Okay, so it's like you're wanting to give his character more dimension. Yeah, so have him have a soft spot for something. You can make him villainous and have him have a soft spot for something. Have him have a soft spot for cute puppies. Have him have a soft spot for something, or have it be for something like very like random. Like if you want to create that complexity, have him have a soft spot for something like very, very strange. Like, wait, what? And then it can create an intrigue, something the reader's not expecting. Yep, exactly. And I think that would be a good idea. So I think that could create some good conflict. I'd agree with that. Awesome. And by the way, speaking of like villains, so once again, Mary, thank you so much for submitting. Definitely a really fun little read. And as we're kind of talking about villains, now's actually the perfect time to call out that this week's weekly writing challenge So for those of you who don't know, every week in the Discord, we do a weekly writing challenge. This is actually literally the perfect time, since we're talking about villains, this is actually the perfect time. So every week we do a weekly writing challenge. On Mondays during our community update stream, the community votes on which submission is their favorite. This week's weekly writing challenge is about villains. So if you haven't submitted already, you should totally provide a submission. The challenge this week is to post a brief excerpt from your story. You can post a brief excerpt from your story where the antagonist says something chilling or clever. It's like, well, drop that. So this week's writing challenge, to post a brief excerpt where the antagonist says something chilling or clever. And then I have the rules down here. So you can just like copy paste from your manuscript, or you can do a screenshot. I post the rules here. We have a couple of submissions, which is cool. We'll vote on our favorite on Monday. The winner gets submitted into the Hall of Epic Writers. So may the best writer win. Go submit. Go join the Discord if you're not already a Discord fan. And that is what I got. All right, so that was definitely a fun little read. Definitely a fun little piece. All right, and so what I'm going to do, so with today's schedule, I'm kind of pushing up on time with today's schedule, but Eli, I see your piece is actually really short. So I think what we'll do, Eli, I think I'll hop into your piece because it's actually kind of a fast one. And we'll see how we can help you out. All right, we're going to go. All right, and let's see, bear with me just a second. Let's get this one all set up. All right, and of course, for anybody who wants to submit for the Story and Critique Show and wants feedback for their piece, submit now. Stories that I don't get to in a stream just get pushed, and they get saved in the queue for the next Story and Critique stream. Usually, we actually get really backed up on stories too. This has been one of the first Story and Critique shows in probably like a year and a half, where I'm not super behind on stories. So now is actually like the perfect time to submit. I usually get really backed up on these stories, so definitely really great work, friends, on submitting for those who got in today. And then let's see, Eli, I'm gonna hop into yours because you did a really short submission today, and I think I should have time for it. Okay, so let's do it. And for those of you who've been part of the community, we've gone through definitely a number of segments with Eli's story. Let's see, Baboon Pie and Jaguar Champagne. And let me just pull up here. Let's see what we got. All right, so once again, for anyone who doesn't know, this is the first draft of a novel. The specific feedback you guys looking for. How does the tone feel? It is, the sparseness is intentional. Let's try to look at it. Any feedback is welcome. Once again, this is a very early draft. Okay. So very, very early draft. So it looks like we're kind of, Eli's looking more for like the tone of it. And so we're just going to offer like a developmental on like, okay, how does it sound? Anything that doesn't make sense, and so on and so forth. Okay. So let's see what we see. Baboon Pie and Jaguar Champagne. Chapter 2. The Church of Christ and the Holy Tetragrammaton. Somewhere outside Texarkana. In the late summer of 1995, Conald Conrad was poaching white-tailed deer in the wilderness outside Texarkana. On the 11th day of August, he returned to his campsite after a successful day of hunting. That night, he woke up in his tent, and he would hear the sounds of a tremendous storm outside. It was only once he was up and out of the tent that he realized he was drenched to the bone, for the sky had been broken asunder, and the downpour was torrential, and he felt cold in the strong wind despite the summer heat. Overhead, the clouds bellowed, and Conald felt his heart melting like ice in his chest. He looked around himself and saw that he was in the middle of a large, empty plain, for he chose that spot because he loved to look up at the starry night sky. But then Conald regretted his decision. There was a bright flash of light, and Conald Conrad was on the ground, smoke rising from the spot the lightning bolt entered the top of his head. Conald was profoundly changed by his experience. He sold his house and purchased the field where he was struck. He told everyone he knew and anyone who would listen how he was taken from the field up to heaven, and that he met the Father in the Spirit there. When he asked the Father, "Oh Lord, where is your son, Jesus?" the Father told him, "My son is waiting in another bolt of lightning for the appointed time. You must go back and prepare the way for him. You must establish his true church. Go now and be blessed above all men." In 3 months, he'd proselytized his new religion to enough people that some of them actually started to listen. And a few of those, even a precious few, believed what he said. It wasn't often you met a man been struck by lightning and lived to tell the tale. And Conald wasn't shy about showing the scars he'd gone from the ordeal. By the new year, he'd recruited 30 members, willing to help him renovate the property and live there with Conald as their spiritual advisor. Among these were 10 married couples, including the Brunels, the Stokeworth-Leys, and Vanderclays, as well as 8 unmarried men and 2 unmarried women. Conald's message to his followers was simple. There was work to be done, to prepare for the coming of the kingdom of God, and there was no time to waste. For as the lightning cometh out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Which of us can say when the Lord will move? And from then on, that became a sort of aphorism among the members of the church. Which of us can say when the Lord will move? It was the kind of happy horse shit that passed for wisdom when someone didn't have anything interesting to say. But it basically meant, don't waste time thinking. Act. As the community grew and new ideas were introduced, as often happens with new ideas, these were tested against the orthodoxy. Nice. End submission. Brief little excerpt right there. Awesome. So Eli, I definitely have to say, I actually really like this chapter. For someone like myself, I'm not super religious, but I kind of resonated with this character, which is really interesting. I think you made this opening very direct. And I like that there's a very clear moment where we see this character change through the lightning, and he's kind of starts this religious order, which to the character, it makes sense. I actually like the brevity of the chapter, and I am all for it. I'm really liking the direction of this. I'm curious where this is going, like knowing like the rest of your story. And I think I have a guess. I think I have a guess what this chapter is intended for. Yeah. So let me give you some notes. I only have a couple for this bit. Overall setup of it was fine. You set up the time period and the setting very well. My one thing was with his name, Conald Conrad. I kind of stumbled over that one a couple of times, only because it was like 2 C's. I know you. This was 100% probably intentional. Conald Conrad. I kept wanting to call him Conrad. I might refer to him as Conrad, because Conrad's just a little easier. Conald, because I read Conald the other times, and then I kept thinking Conrad. Probably because Conrad's a little bit more of a common name than Conald is. But just FY, random subjective thought. I like this description, by the way. Overhead the clouds bellowed, and Conrad felt his heart melting like ice in his chest. Okay, so I know this opening beat is very short intentionally. I think the only moment that I would really elaborate on is the lightning strike. There was a brief flash of light, and Colonel Conrad was on the ground. Smoke rising from the spot, the lightning bolt entered the top of his head. I would just expand on this, maybe like a couple more sentences. I know you're trying to make it like a very like brief action sequence. I think I would also make the separate sentences as just like this editor hat on, so that way we can really focus on what's happening, right? There was a brief flash of light, and Colonel Conrad was on the ground. Smoke rose, was on the ground. Everything flashed around him. Smoke rose from the spot where lightning had struck him from his head. I think it's something with the wording. Smoke rose from the spot where the lightning bolt entered the top of his head. Yeah, so I think I would just adjust the wording. He felt a sharp. I think we could actually go closer to him. He felt a jolt of electricity from the base of his skull, he felt a jolt of electricity, like the voice of God at the tip of his head, or something to that extent. You can find better wording for that. But I think it would be a little stronger if we kind of experience in that brief moment of how he feels getting hit by lightning, right? Instead of you telling the lightning bolt entered. And I think it would make it a little bit more profound, because then his next thing is very profound, right? It basically changes his whole life. And I think this moment, I want to experience it with him as much as possible, because it's a great, I mean, how often does somebody get struck by lightning? It's happened. It has happened. And yeah, so like I'm all for this. And then we show, as a result of this happening, he was profoundly changed, right? It basically upends his life. Yep, this is fine. This is when he asked the father. This is basically kind of saying like this is his experience that he's talking about as from what happened. Yes, I think, Eli, that's actually a really great recommendation. He said you want to try to do some reading about lightning strike survival to make sure it's authentic. Yeah, and I would say this, people have been struck by lightning before. I have no clue if can somebody survive a lightning strike. I think I have heard. Can people survive a lightning strike? Can someone survive a lightning strike? Like, is that a thing? Like, I have to Google this. I don't know. I mean, I think interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I just like pulled up Google. You guys will find this interesting. Yes, it is possible to survive a lightning strike, and in fact, about 90% of victims survive. While strikes carry immense voltage, they are very short bursts. Survivors often face long-term health issues, including neurological damage, chronic pain, and hearing loss, but many make a full recovery. Interesting. So, and this is just on a quick Google search. Yeah, Eli, maybe something interesting to add as like at each moment, like to kind of show how he has some type of like physical ailment. As a result, like some type of like neurological, or maybe like his hand starts like twitch. Maybe his hand twitches every single time he talks about God, right? But and one person might think like, oh, that's because he got struck by lightning. But he's like, no, it's a sign. It's a sign that God wants me to, that God is changing me to help shape your will, right? So I think you could actually do that, do something like that. I would say maybe his what are the physical consequences of him being struck by lightning, and then have the reader second guessing like, oh, okay, was it because he was struck by lightning, or is it because God is changing him physically? So I think that's actually really interesting. Yeah, so Masters, this is a really interesting point. So there's actually a very specific. So you said whenever you're dealing with active religion, and Eli, this isn't just for you, this is anybody in general, you need to be careful and not to be overly offensive, whether Christianity, Islam, Hindu, people hold to their religion with much importance. And as for me, someone like, I'm not very religious, so it's just not something that I could resonate with. This is the exact reason that there are sensitivity readers out there. So usually what I recommend when you're writing things of topics that are either with topics that people can have very extreme differing perspectives on. All you want to do is when you start getting feedback, once the book's done, you start getting feedback from people, you want to get feedback from readers who can identify with that with the point of view, right? So I think I'm reading about lightning. Yeah. Yeah, you're like, with regard to the religious aspect, I trust the readers should choose not read things that are harmful to them. Yeah. Yeah, and so this is why it's always really good, and this is specifically actually why uh, this is why the sensitivity reader exists. When we get through our stories, if there's, and this isn't even just religious things. This is like whenever writers write things with characters who have like disabilities. Like, let's say a writer writes a character who's blind, and they want to make it authentic, but then something that the writer writes could make people who are blind, like maybe they're probably listening to it, it could make them feel minimized about their experience, even though that was not the writer's intent. So usually writers will get as sensitivity readers to kind of get feedback and be like, hey, did I write unintentionally? Was there a part of it, maybe it was a style choice, maybe it was something offhand that potentially made somebody feel offended? Of course, there's going to be people who like things and people who don't like things, but by getting that feedback, you can minimize the chance, right? If you want people to feel a way because of the content of the story, not as a side effect of something that could have been styled or worded differently. So yeah, and I mean, right now I don't think I see any problems with it. I think it's so far it's interesting, as I'm looking at it at a purely fictitious perspective. Hmm. But it is an interesting point. It is an interesting point, and I think something that can help too, Eli, because I know you have a lot of moments here with religion and the way these characters are dealing with it. I think whenever it gets published, I think then one of the things you do is in the blurb, in the when readers are checking out, like, hey, is this a book I want to read? I think you just make that part of the blurb, or you add some type of, not like a trigger warning, but you make the reader aware of, like, oh, okay, this book touches upon religion, so on and so forth, right? So then you get the right types of readers because they know what to expect. Readers only get pissed off about things when they're reading something that they don't expect, right? That's when readers get pissed off. All right, and then what else? So as I'm looking, Colin's message, coming. So I mean, I really did like the transition. I actually think the transition worked very well for his character. I like that he goes from getting hit by a lightning bolt to he basically heard the voice of God. He thinks he heard the voice of God, and now he's basically building like his new religion. And he's bringing in very select families and people. He's very, very intentional about that. And then he has his message. So essentially, he's kind of starting his new religion, which is fascinating. I know absolutely nothing about this. Each of us can say, kind of happy. So I mean, I like that. I like the transition. I'm so curious how this is going to relate to our MCs. I'm very intrigued by this. But as we can see, this is chapter 2, and this is a single scene beat. So my guess is the next scene beat's probably going to transition to one of our other characters. This is interesting. I do like how it ends. How you tie into the ending here. But it basically it was a kind of, which of us can say when the Lord will move? It was the kind of happy horseshit that passed for wisdom when someone didn't have anything interesting to say. But it basically meant don't waste time thinking, act. All right, so he's basically translating, right, what this something that is like a common saying, and he's saying that's horseshit. Just be direct, right? And I like that, right? It gives us character development on the way that he perceives the world. So definitely do that. Let's see. You said you're definitely not opposed to trigger warning. Yeah, I mean, I think those are things you start thinking about like once the book's written, and then you ask yourself like, okay, what types of trigger warnings do you include? Like for me, for Scarecrow, I'm gonna have to include a trigger warning that some animals are killed vicious. Like there's animal in a world that's only animals. There's animal cruelty, and there's just animal cruelty in it. But it's a world of fictitious animals, so that's probably a trigger warning I'm gonna have to include. Otherwise, if I know, I'm gonna get some animal lovers who'll read and be like, "This is the worst garbage, you animal hater." I'm like, no, just hater of all the characters in my world, apparently. Yeah, so trigger warnings are important. Hey, what's up, White Sir? Hello. I think that's actually all that I got. Courtney, I completely agree. I think if you start getting enough like 1-star reviews and people are upset, then that's a sign like, okay, just add a trigger warning to the Amazon about page. And if people still give a 1-star review, then I don't know, sucks to suck. do another edition if it's enough 1-stars. But sometimes people just trying to be haters. You're not trying to hurt it, but I was a religious person once. There are critics of religion in the world. Yeah, I totally get that. And I mean, I think that's the power that we have as writers, right? That we're able to write experiences from extreme topics. So, and I think anybody kind of understands this. If they're going to write a story that touches on one of the two, we all know the two most contentious points that make people feel extreme ways: politics and religion. If you write anything, even if it's fictitious, that is heavily about politics or religion, you're going to get extremes because people feel extreme ways about politics and religion. We know that, right? So I think recognizing that and just recognizing like that's just the way people are. If you write a story that's like very heavily touches upon like race or racism, people are going to feel extreme ways about that. So we recognize that, and we write the story that we want to write, and then we have to categorize the things. We have to categorize the things in the correct way, so people can mentally agree to what they're reading to. It comes down to is, as a reader, I want to agree to what I am reading to. And then I want to be challenged. Some people like to read things and be challenged about their perception. Other people like to read things because they want to further add more factual clarity to their own point of view, their own perspective. People read for different reasons. So, but that's a really great conversation. Really good conversation. I purposely don't like touch on things like religion or politics because it's just not things that I can really like write to or speak to in my writing. It's not really anything that I care to write to in my writing personally. I would rather, but I mean, also as a fantasy writer, we do a lot of fantasy stories, do a lot of politics through fantasy politics, and that's probably something that I will do at some point. I was like, would I do something with religion, with like a religious character? I could. I might in the future. Something with like a religious character. And it's kind of like a commentary on it in a fantasy setting. It's kind of interesting. And by the way, White, so I saw that you had asked a question. You had asked, did you have enough submissions for today, Kauffman? I was actually all caught up on submissions today too. And yeah, I did get enough, which was cool. And then a bunch of people submitted today, so we got good. But I would say, even though like we are caught up, like people should keep submitting, especially if you're wanting to get feedback by the time we have our next critique stream. Yeah, Mary, that is a popular strategy, right? Lately, books are being self-published, but the story is actually being put out in more than one book. Not really as a series, but a few chapters at a time to sell more books. And I mean, that's definitely a strategy, right? Where people will like submit or upload maybe chapters to like those websites and then try to use the chapters to get book sales. Yeah, and you know what's interesting? I don't read a lot of reviews either. Ooh, White Sarah, congratulations, my friend. That's actually really exciting. By the next time the next critique stream happens, which for those of you who are new here, and most of you are here in the community, right? We do the critique stream weekly, which means we generally do it every other week. Next weekend I'll be on the road. I'll be traveling. So I will not be here, but the next critique stream should be on Saturday, March 28th. But Eli, Weitzer, that's so exciting, my friend. I know how excited you've been to get your manuscript back so you can get it towards being closer to being published. I believe, Weitzer, you said your publishing date is May 1st? Pretty sure you said May 1st, if I remember correctly. Awesome. Well, I just want to say I appreciate all y'all. Today has been absolutely a great critique stream. For those of you who've missed out on other episodes of the Story and Critique Show, Courtney put together the Story and Critique thingamajigger, the spreadsheet. The spreadsheet of all the stories that we've ever done, all 300 or so stories. So if you've missed out on any of our story and critique shows, this is what episode are we on? This is the 59th episode of the critique show. So if you want to check out any of the story excerpts of the stories we did to date, we've done 3 of them. We've done earlier chapters on 3 of the stories we've read today. And different variations and different revisions and versions. All 58 episodes are archived in the Story and Critique Show archive. It's linked down in the YouTube description if you want to go check it out. Awesome. And I appreciate y'all. I'll be back tomorrow. We'll see how tomorrow goes. We'll see. So tomorrow for our YouTube channel members, tomorrow is our critique right now. So if you're working on a piece of your story and you want to get feedback from a group of writers, come join us. It's tomorrow, 11 Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. All you got to do to join is just become a channel member. Linked, so all you have to do is down below this YouTube live stream, you click on the join. It kind of tells you the cost. It tells you the layout. But basically, the critique access for the critique group we put at $10 a month. 25% goes to YouTube, 25% goes to taxes, so really I make about 5 on it. But essentially what it is, it's a monthly critique group where we meet every month, you read an excerpt of your story, and you get feedback from myself and the other writers in the critique group. It's been a really fun experience. We've been going for almost a year and a half now, and it's definitely a great experience. So come join us, join Critique Right Now tomorrow. That is a private group. And it'll be a lot of fun. Looking forward to seeing everyone's stories. And I will probably be streaming at some point tomorrow. We'll have to see based on how my date goes. So I appreciate all y'all. I'll be back with the critique show in 2 weeks. And we're going to continue to get some progress on Scarecrow. And hopefully y'all can enjoy the rest of your weekend. If you enjoyed the stream, tap that like button. Help us show the algorithm that writing streams are cool. All right, my friends, you rock. Writers are the best. But unfortunately, that brings us to the end of the stream. Don't forget, words are wind, but stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers.
stories are forever. I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch you on the morrow. Stay creative, writers. It's time to write
Right now.
Sorry.
Right now, not right now, but right now. Read now, right now.